27th of June, so we've got to wait till the end of the month for the House of Commons to reopen, which is not surprising. Who needs a House of Commons anyway, right? They figured out this way to govern without the House of Commons, so it seems antiquated, says our new government, who has not been sworn in yet. It's all very strange to me, but here's what's happening, right? We have to wait a month. Honestly, it's wild. The opposition leader in Australia, they just had an election in Australia. The opposition leader lost his seat, just like Canada. Isn't that super weird? I've got that for you this morning. Ukraine mineral deal impacts Canada. So Canada used to be the top mineral people or the top exporter of minerals to the United States, and it kind of underpins our entire that aspect of our economy. And it's being hollowed out by the United States agreement with Ukraine because they've got access to all those raw minerals now, and they're going to have a group of people there mining those minerals, and that's going to be super interesting. So I've got some color on that from Sean Newman. The United Nations is running out of money. Yay! That's good news, right? Good news, everyone. And interprovincial trade barriers are set to be torn down by Mark Carney, and the food professor hopes that Mark Carney is not lying. But I mean, well, we went through that campaign where lying was kind of what Mark Carney did. So fingers crossed, I guess. There's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. Frank Zappa says, the illusion of freedom will continue as long as it's profitable to continue the illusion. At the point where the illusion becomes too expensive to maintain, they'll just take down the scenery, they'll pull back the curtains, and they'll move the tables and chairs out of the way, and you will see the brick wall at the back of the theater. Yeah, it's kind of like staying too long at the bar and they turn the lights on and you think, I've been sitting here for the last 4 hours? What in the world? So I think that the illusion, and this was in response to kind of what we're talking about overall, Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre losing his seat, and well, what I'm about to talk about, he's saying all of this is a distraction from the real issue. We're participating in this theater, this illusion of freedom, and it's not really what governs us. What governs us is something else entirely, and I think that's true. Kate says, Prime Minister Mark Carney said he'd call a by-election ASAP if a conservative MP steps down so Poilievre can run for a seat. No games, he said. BUAC says, so the guy who eliminated 250 of the 400,000 Liberal leadership votes so he could become Prime Minister without having a seat while he remained on numerous boards and his money in offshore bank accounts doesn't want to play games now? Right, good point. However, no games, right? Brand new. We're going to get the conservative leader is going to run in Alberta and get his seat. And TR guy says they're all on the same. It's all the uniparty. He says Pierre loses his seat. An MP in a very blue riding gives up his seat so Pierre can run in a by-election. And Carney agrees to call the by-election right away. And you still don't believe it's a uniparty. It's one of those things where that's, quote, decorum. I think it was meant to derail Poilievre and get his attention off of whatever just happened on the election and refocus on winning a seat to get back into the House of Commons. Poilievre says, it's with humility and appreciation that I've accepted Damien Currick's offer to resign his seat in Battle River Crowfoot so that I can work to earn the support of citizens there to serve them in Parliament. Damien's selfless act to step aside temporarily as a member of Parliament shows his commitment to change and restoring Canada's promise. I will work to earn the trust of the good people of Battle River Crowfoot, and I will continue to hold the Liberal minority government to account until the next federal election, when we will bring real change to all Canadians. So that's interesting. So expect a by-election to be called soon, where Pierre Poilievre and perhaps Maxime Bernier will be running. Here is... Honestly, I don't know. That's the rumor anyway. Here is John, and he says, Peter Dutton is the first opposition leader in Australian history to lose his seat. Weakness doesn't pay. So interesting, right? Shock. Peter Dutton defeated in Dixon. And this is the Australian election, and they kept their... I think it was Labour, but whoever was already in power, they kept power. The same prime minister remained prime minister. And so just like Canada, I mean, I'm shocked, right? Can you tell how shocked I am? Glenn says, I've been hearing Maxime Bernier is gunning for a head-on collision with Mr. Poilievre in Battle River Crowfoot by-election in Alberta. That would be an interesting battle. I think Pierre Poilievre probably wins that, but we'll see. Some people were getting upset that Maxime Bernier was daring to run in a by-election. I think he runs in most by-elections, so I don't know. I don't think it's personal. And, well, if it is, that'd be an interesting debate to watch anyway. Here's Mark Nixon. He says, great to see Pierre Poilievre secure a seat in Parliament. Damien Couric has been a rock-solid conservative since 2019, consistent, sharp, and grounded in principle. At just 35 years old, his best political years are still ahead of him. Hope this opens the door to an even bigger role down the line. And so this is his notifications dated May 2nd, and it says Damien Couric, Conservative MP-elect for Battle River Crowfoot, released the following statement on his decision to resign his seat to allow Conservative Party of Canada leader Pierre Poilievre to run in the forthcoming by-election. And he says, it's been a tremendous honor to serve the good people of Battle River Crowfoot, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so you can read it all. I'm not going to go through it all just because it's a little long. So apologies about that. Mario is talking about how they are still counting and Liberals are still gaining seats. Very interesting situations going on. So there are seats flipping to the Bloc. There are seats flipping to the Liberals. And Mario says, there's no way this is corruption. Parm wins by nearly 300 ballots. They invalidated 400 plus ballots, and Liberals are now up by 29 and take the riding. Statistically, that's impossible to have that many invalidated ballots all against Parm. Ridiculous. Recount. So all the invalidated ballots. I mean, when you can just say, oh no, that ballot's not valid. Neither is that one. Neither is that one. So the Conservative ones aren't valid? Yeah, that's right. Ryan is responding to the CP24 headline that says Ontario riding flips to Liberals after validation process. Ryan says they will keep recounting until they claim a majority. Once you have the number, you can manufacture votes by having mail-in ballots and bingo, bingo, bongo. Or you've got, oh man, I left this ballot box at home. Shucks, can you believe that? We've got this 20,000 more things to count. Oh man. Oh, and they are all Liberal. Can you believe that with pencil? Whew. Unbelievable, right? The remanded, who's been keeping an eye on the BC election, says also the same sort of thing in the BC election. Rejected ballots could be reconsidered. Rejected ballots were considered omitted at one point, and rejected ballots weren't added to the total during the final count. And then he's got the reference here. It says there's no opportunity to reconsider the rejected ballots during the initial count. If the election official for the final count or candidate representative has concerns the ballots have been incorrectly rejected, there is a process to have them reconsidered during a recount as part of the final count proceedings. As such, we intend to reconsider these ballots through the process and to issue an order to provide these ballots be counted if the voter's intent is clear. So 400 ballots, there may be a legal mechanism to get those 400 ballots that were rejected reconsidered and flip it back. But at this point, the Liberals have a de facto majority. I think the seven seats is very, very comfy, right? Yesterday, here is the initial impacts of Trump and the fallout from Carney being elected, although I don't know that Poilievre has any different news. Canada Proud is reporting General Motors says that they'll be cutting their third shift at their Oshawa, Ontario plant in light of forecast demand and the evolving trade environment. So GM is bringing a shift back to the United States, maybe. We'll see how that all works out. Data Republican says this essay will explain everything about why they are acting the way they are. This is the foreign policy model under which virtually every Western nation operates under. Soros redefined national security and peace not to be the absence of war, but to bring under as many nations under the open society umbrella as possible. Being against foreign aid or against interference implicitly means you're an enemy of democracy. And so they can use that enemy of democracy to label you an enemy of democracy. And now we have to use the apparatus of the world's response, NATO and the states. You are a threat to democracy. And so we have to stamp it out, right? And so that's interesting. And this is toward a new world order. The Future of NATO, by George Soros. Oh man, it just keeps getting worse, right? That's the essay from 1993. So not so great. I was 12 years old. 12 years old. Concerned Canadian says, are you kidding me? This is what Carney's resorting to? Put on your Team Canada sweaters and come together as a country to fight Trump. Yeah, this is his, the election's over, everybody. Time to get on Team Canada and stop complaining. And I think that's, funny is not the right word, but here we are. Here's Mark Carney.
Canadians in the NHL play for a variety of teams passionately against each other. But when they're in a once-in-a-lifetime series such as the Four Nations or the Olympics, those same Canadians come together to win it all. During elections, Canadians play and cheer for different teams. Now that election is over, and we are in a once-in-a-lifetime crisis. It's time to come together to put on our Team Canada sweaters and win big. Now is the time for ambition, to be bold, to meet this crisis with an overwhelming positive force that is a united Canada. It's time to build, and my government is getting to work to build. Build big, bold, and build now.
It's such a muddy message. It's not very clear. I don't believe him unless he's going to be repealing Bill C-69, unless we're building pipelines. I don't know what he's really talking about. Build what? For who? Right? Like, what deals are you announcing, sir? It seems pie in the sky and like, oh, don't worry about it. Mark Carney's got it, but I want details. I want actual hard details about what's going on. Here's Mark Carney again, and he's responding to Danielle Smith. Danielle Smith says, just finished a positive meeting with Prime Minister Carney. We spoke at length about the policies and legislation that are holding back Alberta's economy and specific proposals for projects and legislative reforms that will significantly increase market access for Alberta oil and gas, agricultural products and other goods. The Prime Minister made it clear he intended to rapidly advance these kinds of nation-building projects in the coming weeks and months. We also discussed our ongoing trade dispute with the United States and how the federal government can work cooperatively with our province to advance both Canada and Alberta's interests. Repairing the damage to Alberta's economy caused by Ottawa's last 10 years of anti-resource legislation and policies will take tremendous effort and cooperation. However, today's conversation was a positive first step. And so that's interesting anyway. And Mark Carney says, thanks for the call, Premier. We're both focused on bringing down the cost of living and increasing opportunities in the energy sector for hardworking Albertans. I look forward to working together to break down interprovincial trade barriers and build one strong Canadian economy. So we'll see how all that comes together. As I've always said, I want the straightest line back to sanity. I don't think Carney's it. I honestly don't think Carney's it. He's pushing heat pumps and electric vehicles, and I just don't. Those two things don't jibe. So we'll see what he actually does. We'll see what actually happens. This is our Alberta series. So Janice Irwin, who's an NDP radical, and she's in the Alberta legislature as the NDP. She says, "I'm an Albertan, and I unequivocally reject the idea of separation." So Alberta separation is something that people want a referendum on, and people want to start the process of becoming an independent entity, independent of Canada, so Alberta doesn't have to send all that money to Ottawa and so on and so forth, and in order to deal more closely with Donald Trump and develop our natural resources, or develop their natural resources and get them to market, basically, right? And so this is an NDP person, and it's only 9 seconds. If it was a minute, I don't think I'd play it. It's 9 seconds. Can we deal with this for 9 seconds? Here's 9 seconds of the NDP being ideologically captured by whatever. She doesn't want separation. Is that ideologically captured? I don't know. But here she is wearing an Oilers shirt, and here we go.
I'm an Albertan, and I unequivocally reject the idea of separation. Why won't Danielle Smith say the same?
There you go. I think Danielle Smith has talked about that and said that she's not on board with separation. Here is Vesper, and he's gone through the details on what's going on with separation from a legal point of view. Can Alberta do it? Does it qualify the criteria as set out in 1996 by the Supreme Court of Canada with regards to Quebec's application or Quebec's attempt to separate at the time. And this came out in 2000, I guess. I thought it was 96, but I guess 2000. And anyway, Vesper says, the journey, a clear path exists for Alberta's secession, but federal and legal hurdles still need to be understood. Sovereignty requires more than a majority and a review of the validity of the clear question and expression of its citizens by the rest of Canada. The Supreme Court rulings for secession. What questions did the Supreme Court ask regarding the framework viability for secession? Let's clarify some points from the Quebec ruling, which then invoked the Clarity Act afterwards for more precision. And you can read that if you're interested. Link is in the description usually. Vesper continues, the Constitution, Confederation, and secession. How the Canadian Constitution views the process. It leans more on the side of Confederation since it states unambiguously that Canada was not formed to separate, even though a process exists for separation. Laws and obligations. A clear referendum majority lacks legal effect and cannot override federalism for self-determination without other provinces. If a clear majority is evident, the Constitution prevents provinces from denying that province's will to secede. 5. Provincial requirements for secession. Who decides what a clear majority and question are? The Supreme Court clarifies the legal framework, but the provinces, House of Commons, and Senate determine the merits of a proposed clear majority and question presented by Alberta. Here's the role of the referendum. What's the purpose of a referendum if it holds no grounds for unilateral secession? Its role is necessary to show the rest of the Federation that the will of the province, even though it holds no legal weight, but it's still important, according to the Quebec ruling, number 5. Federalism. What's the principle of federalism is interpreted as, and how this interplays with the dynamics of provincial independence and federal authority. And he's got something there. And I think that was it. There were 15, and it goes through like the House of Commons authority. Like the House of Commons has 30 days from the day of submission by the provinces seeking to secede to evaluate the validity of and clarity of the question, and the province seeks to ask its citizens, so the referendum, and then the House of Commons considerations. The House of Commons reviews whether the province question to its citizens clearly expresses the population's will and identifies the potential conflicts that could obscure the expression clearly. Essentially, the House of Commons is the arbiter. And it says who else is involved and negotiations, blah, 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 blah. And I feel like there's a long song and dance. So there's a few more things. I've glossed over it a little bit, but there's a lot of steps. The referendum itself is not the end. It's just the beginning. And there's a whole process that seems pretty well laid out. And there's an argument that Quebec did not meet the standards or the criteria for separation, but Alberta does meet the standards. But I've been saying all along, I don't think the powers that be, the Confederacy of Canada, the entity that has control of the government right now, will not allow any province to secede, to leave. Not Quebec, not Alberta, nobody. And they won't allow it because if Alberta left, then I think Canada is gone. Canada just disintegrates after that. Like economically, it's not viable, and so they don't want to lose the power. And also economically, Canada would no longer be viable without Alberta. So all of that kind of culminates in a long song and dance that at the end is going to say, there's a real good legal reason for this, but you'll get bored listening to the explanations. So just trust us when we tell you, you guys lost. Alberta will remain part of Canada. I feel like that's how it's going to go. I feel like there's going to be issue after issue after issue, and they're going to say, we're super close. Oh my gosh, it's super close. Oh, if we could only get this much support, we're super close. And at the end, it's going to be like, 49%. Shucks darn, can't believe it, right? A whole year and a half wasted. Here we are. And that's, I think that's what's going to happen. And people are going to expend their energy. And if it's long, it's not working. If it's going to take a long time, and if you have to do this, and then this too, and then this other thing too, you're being led around by the nose. We're cattle walking around in a circle. That's what's going on. Sorry, but that's what I think is happening. Jason Kenney is talking with Tamara Lich about separation and separatism, and Tamara Lich had a response to Kenney that I thought was worthwhile. So Kenney says, memo to all the tough-talking Western Alberta separatist keyboard warriors. In 2021, you had a real-life Western separatist party running against Justin Trudeau, and all you could muster was 29 candidates from the absurdly named Maverick, formerly Wexit Party. And Tamara Lich says, deregistered is not dead. There's more to what Jason Kenney says, but I don't really care. Deregistered is not dead. And Jason Kenney says, 'tis but a flesh wound. And Tamara Lich responds to him and says, that's genuinely funny, Mr. Kenney. I'm a bit of a Python fan myself. Personally, I've never felt myself as a separatist. I campaigned for you, even took a day off to meet you when you came to town. In fact, your campaign was when I decided I needed to get involved locally if I wanted to make a difference. I had high hopes you were going to stand up to the ideologically motivated Alberta crippling legislation coming at us from the feds. I believed in you. As I watched friends, family, and coworkers losing jobs, their homes, their dignity, I heard you speak of a lot of words and watched you write a lot of harshly worded letters. After much frustration shared by a large population of those you were elected to serve, a group of us got together to try to effect positive change. You can laugh at us all you want. Building a party from nothing is no easy task, and I'm extremely proud of the experience and valuable lessons learned along the way. I was blessed to work with some truly wonderful, caring, and smart people. Even then, I was not a separatist, but wanted more autonomy from the West and more independence from a federal government in Ottawa, making crippling decisions for Albertans, decisions that saw the highest suicide rate in my little town or my little city has ever seen. Separation was always the very last option. It's right in our materials. Today, I'm still not a fan of separation. After my experience, now years after your tenure, I still love my country. My experience opened my eyes to the relationship and similarities between Albertans and the Quebecois, and I left with a whole new respect for them and the eastern provinces. I realized the east-west divide was mostly nonsense from politicians and the taxpayer-funded media. Alberta is my home and the home to many others. I don't think disparaging their perspective or their desire to have their best home that we can possibly have is really appropriate, with all due respect. A large part of the mess we are in is because people in positions like you held refuse to listen to us, the people those people are supposed to serve. Right. And so I think she smacked Jason Kenney down sufficiently there. And Jason Kenney's circling around trying to take Pierre Poilievre's job. And I think... Man, can you imagine if Rachel Notley goes? Like, it's Pierre Poilievre, Rachel Notley, Maxime Bernier. Who else? Nenshi? It'd be interesting. What's happening in Alberta, man? National Post is reporting 38 of Canada's biggest oil and gas companies are calling on Prime Minister Carney to unleash Canada's energy potential. So everybody's saying we've got to do something different than what we've been doing. The last 10 years have been terrible. And if we continue with that, it's going to continue to be terrible. And nobody wants that. Nobody. Does Carney want that? Maybe. Here's Alexandra Lavoie, and she spends a minute trying to get a response from Carney about the canola oil for Saskatchewan farmers. Does Mr. Carney flinch? No, he does not. He doesn't say a word. And I think that's interesting. So there are reporters out there fighting for Saskatchewan and fighting for the Saskatchewan farmers. And here's proof positive, if anybody's wondering, has Mark Carney been informed that there is a tariff from China on Canadian canola oil, and that is impacting Saskatchewan farmers? Is he aware? Yes. Here is the proof.
Mr. Carney, why have you not spoken about the 100% tariff from China on canola? Why have you not spoken about that yet? Premier Daniel Smith warned of a national united crisis if Alberta concerns are not being addressed. Are you going to take our demand seriously, Mr. Carney? Mr. Carney, do you believe that using tax haven is ethical, Mr. Carney? No, I have the right to be here. I'm sorry. Why are you calling police on independent journalists, Mr. Carney? Do you believe on freedom of the press? You remember in Davos, you condemned the arrest of my colleague David Menzies by your colleague Chrystia Freeland. And now you're calling the police to block us access, Mr. Carney.
You're
Can
too
you
close.
stop?
You're too close now. You need to go that way.
Mr. Carney, are you going to release the 11 parliamentarian names involved in foreign interference, Mr. Carney?
We've gone through an entire election, and you can hear the frustration. It's frustrating, right? She's asking good questions. She's the only journalist there, right? I didn't see anybody else asking questions. So good on the Rebel for doing what they're doing. Nobody cares. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. And least of all, Mark Carney, he doesn't respond at all. So not a good indication for what's to come. Sean Newman says, not sure Mark Carney saw this one coming. The United States just cut a massive mineral deal with the Ukraine. Canada, once America's top resource partner, is watching from the sidelines. Here's why this deal is a direct blow to Mark Carney's government. Sean continues, for decades, Canada supplied the U.S. with critical minerals. We're not talking small change. Over 50% of Canada's mineral exports go to the United States. Minerals make up about 5% of Canada's GDP. Nickel, potash, uranium exports are up to 80% U.S. dependent. Then came the Canada-Trump standoff. Trump's tariffs on Canadian minerals blindsided Ottawa. Instead of working towards a new deal, Carney has dug in and refused to concede. And now the U.S. is quietly replacing Canada in its supply chains. The United States Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund now gives the United States market access to lithium, nickel, cobalt, titanium, rare earths, and uranium. These are the same resources that anchor Canada's mineral economy. Rutro, I think it's 5% of our economy. Production capacity and logistics make Ukraine a horrible replacement partner, says Maggie. This is just to recoup what they're owed. So Maggie's not worried, but it's an interesting thing to consider. If Canada loses any of those big contracts, what does that mean? And can we get it back with the combative attitude of Mark Carney? Or can we replace it with a pipeline, say? I don't know. Here's the food professor. He says Prime Minister Carney has pledged that all interprovincial trade barriers will be eliminated by July 1st, including those affecting the agricultural food sector. Does this include barriers created by provincially managed quotas in dairy as well? Please let it be true. I don't know if it's true. It seems unlikely that they're going to that Mark Carney is going to get rid of supply management, but we'll see, right? I have absolutely no idea what to expect with regards to that. We'll see if there are interprovincial trade barriers that are actually broken down, and what kind of opportunities do you think that presents? I honestly don't know. I'm genuinely wondering, like, what kind of things are advantageous to import from like BC that I couldn't import before? Because I'm like, let's do it. I'm in Ontario. Let's import things or whatever. I'll export from Ontario. Anybody? We can get into exporting interprovincially. Who's in? Anyway, it's interesting, right? I think that it's interesting. If opportunities are being opened up, then that's wonderful because that's beneficial to Canadians, and I want to take advantage of it. I want to understand it as much as I possibly can. But if it's just bullshit, and it seems like so much of it is bullshit, like, oh, interprovincial trade is opening up. Okay, what do you mean specifically? Like, give me numbers, give me percentages, give me actual monetary dollar amounts, right? And instead, we get kind of like, oh, well, it's in this sector. And we don't even get that at this point in time. So I'm interested to see what the details of all of this are. Here's Mark Carney again announcing this is our grab bag of governance. And I got to say goodbye to the stream. I want to do that. Yesterday, I want to apologize. I cut it off a little bit early, and I meant to explain things a little bit more, and I made it longer. So yesterday's show is actually about 10 minutes longer on the video than it was on the stream. And I didn't mean to cut it off so early. I did mean to cut it off so early, but I didn't realize that I hadn't covered a couple of reports that I wanted to cover within the free show. So apologies about that. I did cut it off early yesterday. But today I've got to cut it off early again. Or not early, but now. And so thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow. And we'll carry on for everybody else. This is our grab bag of governance. And Mark Carney is talking about King Charles, who will be doing the throne speech on the 27th of May. Here we go.
In the coming weeks, I will unveil more of our plans to engage with Canadians as we embark on the biggest transformation of our economy since the end of the Second World War. This will be an incredibly exciting time as we take control of our economic destiny to create a new Canadian economy that works for everyone. We will begin to set out that new path for Canada with a new cabinet to be sworn in on the week of the 12th of May and the recall of Parliament on May 26th. We will have the privilege of welcoming His Majesty King Charles III, who will deliver Canada's speech from the throne on May 27th. Her Majesty the Queen will join this visit. This is an historic honor which matches the weight of our times.
I didn't think Camilla would be queen. I thought she was going to be queen consort or something like that. I didn't think that she got to have the title of queen because it's Charles' second marriage after that whole unfortunate paparazzi incident. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to canadianpolitics.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful